Hi, Melissaville, and welcome to the Texas Roundup, where Texas meets the world. Today, joining me is Billy Busch. He's the heir to the legendary Busch dynasty. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, Melissa. Thank you very much for having me on.
So, your family, it's an iconic, the Anheuser-Busch empire is something that everybody definitely knows about. And the Busch family is definitely one of America's most well-known dynasties. What was it like to grow up in this type of a family?
It was really it was never a boring moment for sure. And it was amazing. There was really no difference between the business and the family because we're all kind of tied together with the business as we grew up. My father, August A. Busch Jr., also known as Gussie, was running the brewery when I was born back in the 50s. He actually took it over in 1946, and he ran it till 1975. So I grew up and I got to watch him run the company. I got to watch him and mom interact, my mother, and grow the business. And it was, again, it was really so much about the business. He opened up our home, Grant's Farm, which is a beautiful farm in St. Louis, Missouri. And he opened it up to the public so people could come out and sample Budweiser and the other beers that he sold. He also bought the Cardinals during that time. So we had people coming through our home, through our place. We got to go to the Cardinal games and sit right in the front row and go into the dugout and go into the locker rooms and meet all the Cardinals. You know, people like Bob Gibson and Lou Brock and some of the great Cardinals of the past. And it was a great time. And not only that, but my dad also opened up 8 or 9 breweries around the United States. And with those breweries, a lot of them had theme parks around them, better known as Busch Gardens now. And it was so fun to be able to go and see the animals up close and go to the background and see the animals and the chimps and the elephants and the cheetahs and all the different animals that we got to interact with was just really cool. And then, of course, we brought them to Grant's Farm, where I grew up in St. Louis, and our home in the summer when we were open to people, and I got to work with the elephants. And in the book, Family Reins, I talk about a pet elephant that I had and I grew up with. And what they tell you about elephants, Melissa, is exactly true. They're very smart. They have a long memory. And so when they would go back to Florida in the winter and come back in the spring to St. Louis, they would remember me. And one in particular, her name was Tessie, and she was an amazing elephant. I grew very close to her. She actually protected me from some bullies at one point in my life. So what more can I say? It was just a great time growing up, during that era, which was probably Anheuser-Busch's greatest growth. Dad took it from 3 million barrels of beer sold to about 40 million barrels of beer sold in 1975. But then it all came to a crashing end. And, the reasons for that are numerous, but really because my little sister was killed and Dad started kind of losing it a little bit. And his son, my half brother, pretty much took it from him, took the company from him, and formed a boardroom coup and succeeded my father running the brewery.
Wow. So there's a lot of definitely different facets going on at this point. And I know he was a very hands-on type of approach to things, correct? Your dad?
He certainly was. He grew up, he was learning firsthand from his father. He would tell me stories about when he would go to the brewery with his father, and they would walk through the brewery together, and they would greet the employees there. They had over 2,000 employees, and he would go from the brew house all the way to the packaging line, to the mill where the barley was being milled, and he would check everything, and it was always so incredibly high quality that they followed. Every step was all about quality. Everything had to be just perfect. So you could eat off the floors at the brewery, because I went there a few times with my dad as a kid, and it was just immaculate the way it was kept. And of course, all breweries need to be clean because you don't want bacteria or any foreign objects or problems happening to the beer itself. And so Dad was a stickler about quality control, and yeah, he learned hands on, and he really graduated from the Budweiser University, is what we always said.
And now when this changed, so he kind of took it, grew it to this empire that it was or is. And when did the changeover take place? When did that occur?
The changeover took place in 2008. So my nephew was running the brewery at the time, August the 4th, and he started. Basically, what happened was he gave the rights to a company called InBev to sell their beer through Anheuser-Busch's distribution system. So it gave InBev the ability to take a look at the numbers, the financials of what Anheuser-Busch was all about, and to really dig in and understand just what it would take to take Anheuser-Busch over. And they figured that out. These guys from Brazil and where else were they from? Brazilians. Anyway, they understood numbers very, very well, and it gave them the chance in 2008 when everything was going downhill. We were going through the big recession, of course, and they understood how to take Anheuser-Busch over from the family and from what it was, and they ended up doing that, and that was the end of the era for the Busch family. It lasted 5 generations of Busch leadership, 6 different Busch leaders, because it went down, and then horizontal one time, and then down again to the last generation. But I got to hand it to my family. I'm very proud that we were able to keep it in the family that long, because big companies like that, I think the average span of generations is like 3 generations or something like that. And we made it to 5. So that's pretty cool.
That's amazing. No, definitely. We were talking about the iconic Clydesdales. That's another thing that I grew up with, and I think a lot of people know, with the those horses, and they're making the rounds and stuff and seeing people in different cities and stuff. And was that something that I know your dad, he wanted to create not just a company, but like a brand? It was like a whole type of experience behind it, correct?
Oh, it was. And the Clydesdales came along, and it was really my dad's brainchild, the Clydesdale 8-horse hitch. And it came along, it was basically a present that he and his brother Adolphus gave to their father, August Busch Sr., who took the Anheuser-Busch and kept it going through 13 years of prohibition from 1920 to 1933, where they couldn't sell alcohol. So my grandfather, August Busch Sr., was able to keep all 2,000 employees employed during that difficult time. Of course, the Great Depression came along during that time. So for them to be able to keep their jobs, and he worked really, really hard because he loved his employees. They were loyal. He was loyal to them. And that's the way Anheuser-Busch always was. They always treated their employees great, because the employees are so proud always to work for this company. And anybody that has a company out there, if they treat their employees well, they'll be treated so much better. And the pride that brings to a company is amazing. And that's what Anheuser-Busch was all about. So my grandfather was innovative, and he had to come up with different products during that time where they couldn't sell alcohol any longer. So he came up with selling syrup and near beer, which is non-alcoholic beer, and soda. But really, they sold a lot of their barley, which they had the best barley, again, very high quality, to bread companies. So the barley division of the company really helped sustain Anheuser-Busch through those 13 years. And it took a lot out of August, my grandfather, those 13 years. And in 1933, when Franklin Roosevelt repealed prohibition, my father came up with the idea, let's do something for Dad that a present, because of all the work and blood and sweat and tears that he put into keeping this company going, when so many other breweries had shut down at the time. I mean, they were shutting down right and left. And so they presented him with the Clydesdale hitch, and from what I understand, it brought tears to his eyes, my grandfather's eyes, and it was just an amazing thing. And they then used the Clydesdale hitch to bring the first case of Budweiser down Pestalozzi Street to the White House. Is that the whatever street that is to get to the White House? They drove the a case of Budweiser down on the carriage of the Clydesdales and presented Franklin Roosevelt with a case of Budweiser, thanking him for repealing Prohibition and ending the Volstead Act. And it became an iconic, as you said, marketing campaign behind the 8-horse hitch, and it's still there today, and people still love it. And I think they tell in marketing classes in college, they talk about the 8-horse hitch and what a great campaign that was and the marketing behind it.
And it's crazy because it came from something that was just, to give thanks or, appreciation, and it formed into something so amazing. That's crazy. Now, I know you have a book that you just released. It's called Family Reins, which can be found on Amazon and other places. Where else can we find the book?
You can find
Mhm.
it pretty much where books are sold. It's in a lot of bookstores right now, but like you said, you can go on Amazon. You can get the book itself, or you can get the audio portion where I recite and read the book on audio. And it's called Family Reins: The Extraordinary Rise and Epic Fall of an American Dynasty. And it takes you all the way back to my great grandfather who founded Anheuser-Busch, and when he immigrated legally from Germany over to the United States to live the American dream, and what he went through to grow the business and to come up with the recipe for Budweiser is very interesting, and it's a story I tell in the book, where he goes back to Germany and he goes to a monastery of Benedictine monks, and they serve him beer for dinner because he couldn't find an inn to stay in. He was going by horse and carriage, and they invite him in, the monastery does, and they serve him a great dinner, and they serve beer at the same time because, in case you didn't know, Melissa, the monks were great beer drinkers because during Lent, that's what they, when they were all fasting, they could still drink some beer. And of course, beer has a lot of nutrients in it, and so it helps sustain them during that time. So they all had a lot of monasteries had their own brewery, and he tasted this beer at the monastery and fell in love with it. And he asked if he could have the recipe, and they gave it to him. And now, then he takes that home, and he starts making Budweiser. And it happened in a town called Budweis over in Europe. And so it's a great story. I take you all the way through those times. My father, he left me all these incredible boxes of letters and relics that take me back in history. And my wife Christy and I sat down. We went through these boxes, and we realized this is an incredible story. Nobody else has these. I mean, there's even some letters there that my father had from mistresses that were written to him, and to be able to kind of tell the truth. I mean, there's been a lot of books written about our family, and to be able to tell the truth and be much more accurate, and tell it kind of from the horse's mouth, the Clydesdale's mouth, was really a great thing, a cool thing for me to do. It brought out a lot of old feelings for me. I thought it really helped me kind of deal with some of the things that went on in my life, and writing a book. And I suggest everybody out there write a book because if everybody's got a story to tell, and I told my story, and I'm glad I've done that because now my kids, and I've got 7 of them, can all learn from where I came from and where their roots lie. And I think if people go out there and get this book, they're really going to enjoy it. Everybody I've talked to said it's one of those kinds of books you can't put down once you start it.
And that was what I was going to ask you. I mean, that was kind of part of what made you, or what made you want to write the book, was to get the story out, but also to kind of share, these ups and downs, these like crossovers between like business and family and that type of thing. Correct?
Oh, totally, totally. Because, like I said earlier, we growing up, there really wasn't a differentiation between the family and the business. So we really weren't treated like like say I treat my kids today. I had the luxury of not having to work as hard as my parents had to work because they were growing the business, and they had this huge responsibility. But when I had kids, because of what they were able to do with the company and the wealth they grew, I was able, I didn't have to work as hard. So I was able to give much more time to my kids. There was a differentiation between business and raising a family and priorities there. And which where it really didn't happen in my family. So it was more like being raised by your employer when I was growing up, and who was a drill sergeant, and it was always about keeping Grant's Farm beautiful for and maintaining it for the public, and all our image had to always reflect the company. And I think that's why, and in the book, I talk about how it was growing up in the family, and witnessing all this and the ups and downs of it all. And I think that was probably because of the lack of communication and really being able to act like mother, father, or mother, father, having that mother, father relationship, that people understand and most people know, made it kind of difficult. But you know what? I'm not complaining. Trust me. There's so many incredible things, and writing the book really helped me understand how lucky I was, but also some of the things I missed out on that I now give to my kids.
And I know you mentioned some of the highlights already. Are there a few little like glimpses into the book, like a story or two that you could share?
I think there's a lot of stories in the book that haven't been revealed from the other books that have been written about our family, and I'm the first one to publish a book that is a family member. And so I think just talking about one instance, I guess, would have been the relationship that my dad had with his brother. And I learned a lot about this going through all the historical things that my father left me. And that was when my dad was head of quality control, and his brother, who was older, and he ended up taking the brewery over from his father, my grandfather, and his name was Adolphus. He did a wonderful job. He had to take it through World War II, and he was incredible. He was a patriot by heart, and he actually shut down distribution on the West Coast so that they could use the transportation to move military people around. He built fuselages for the warplanes, American warplanes, at Anheuser-Busch, and 90% of his marketing really was about supporting Anheuser-Busch and the war effort during World War II. And 10% of it went to Budweiser, basically. But what it did was it made Budweiser become a household name because everybody was all about America during that time, and still are today. But of course, during a war, you get much more patriotic, right? It seems like. And Anheuser-Busch took off during that time because now it became Budweiser became a household name because of its support for the war. And so my uncle ran the brewery like that, and did pretty darn well. But there was an occasion that that my father saw that there was something wrong with the beer that he had tried, with a big batch of Budweiser that he tried, and because he was head of the quality control, he decided we got to dump this. His brother didn't want him to dump it. He said, it's not that bad. It's $1 million worth of beer. Let's sell it either way. And Dad, behind his back, because he wasn't running the brewery, had it dumped. And that caused a big rift between the two of them. And Dad almost left the brewery because of that. And he was learning the banking business at the time anyway, or he had learned a lot about it, especially during Prohibition, because he didn't know if he was going to, if Anheuser-Busch was going to survive. So he had to learn other businesses. But, that's one story that I can tell, and it goes in a little bit more detail. Another story was, of course, how the recipe of Budweiser came along, but then stories about me with the elephant growing up, and some of the way we lived, going on the railroad car. We had our private railroad car, and that's how we would travel down to Florida every spring, to watch the Cardinals play spring games, and then travel back on the railroad car. And the fun that was when I was just a little kid. And then there's several other stories, when I got older, kind of I went a little bit wild. I think I was dealing with some things. And, when I had the bar business and some fights that I got into and things like that, which, uh, which, another great story is about my dad's horse that nobody could ride, and how he rode that horse up to his dad's bedroom when his dad was dying. He was very, very sick. And he rode the horse just to make him smile up to his bedroom. So that's a great story. How he met his second wife, and how that transpired at the country club. So there are all kinds of stories in there, Melissa, and I think people will really be able to relate to it. What the fall of the company, how it fell, succession stories in there, especially the succession story of how my half brother took it from my dad, and how that transpired is a really interesting story, I think, for people to read. And there's just a lot of things in there I think people really relate to and enjoy.
It sounds like a great read. I want to finish. I was reading some of it and I wanted to get to the rest of it. I went through a few of the stories, but so far I really enjoyed it. So
I'm
I'm
glad to hear
definitely,
it.
and I know another thing that you're involved in is the hotel business, correct? Real estate.
Correct. Yes. So
Okay.
we're involved in the hotel. The family is my immediate family. Um, we're now hotel owners. We have a hotel in South Beach, Florida, in Miami there, right off of Collins Avenue in the Faena district. We're renovating the hotel right now. It's going to be a luxury boutique hotel with 89 rooms once we open back up, then in the hopefully the fall of 2025, so next year sometime. And yeah, I've always been in the hospitality business, growing up on Grant's Farm, where people came and enjoyed the farm, and interacting with guests in that respect. Uh, the Anheuser-Busch was always such a big hospitality company too. When you're in the beer business, it's all about hospitality. It really is. And so we opened up the theme parks, or my dad did, throughout the country. My great grandfather actually started the Adolphus Hotel, which still stands today and is still open to the public. Have you heard of it, Melissa? You're
Yeah.
from Texas, and Dallas there, right?
Yep.
So
Beautiful.
the cool thing about it was when Adolphus started transporting beer out to farther off places than just St. Louis, which all beer companies back in his day were all pretty much local to the area, because there wasn't pasteurization then, which he invented for beer. Adolphus did. There wasn't any way to keep the beer cold, which he also helped create the refrigerated railroad car. And so now, because of those two aspects, he could now take his beer to further off places. So the first place he went was down southwest of Missouri to Texas, because there was a tariff to cross over the Mississippi. The railroad company would hit you with a tariff. And so he couldn't afford sending his beer across the Mississippi at that time. So instead of going across there, he went southwest and he went into Texas, and there he started selling his beer. He also got very involved with the beer company down there. Uh, what's the big beer company down there? It's still there today. It's very old. He was very involved with them. One of the breweries there. Anyway, he ended up building a hotel because he needed a place to stay, and because he visited there so often, and he built the hotel. So lo and behold, we've been in the hotel business before, our family has, but this is the first time for our immediate family being in the hotel business.
And I'm familiar with South Beach as well too. What hotel? Because I know Collins Avenue is lined with all a
Yes.
lot of hotels there. Which one are you guys renovating?
It was called the Red Hotel. right across from the Palm Hotel. It's called
Okay.
the Faena District down in that area, so it's more of on the north side of the South Beach there. Um, yeah, so it's a great area. Really love the area. The hotel's we're gonna be the only hotel. Well, there's a couple others down there, but one of the only hotels that has the rooftop and a sound room there for people to come in and record and do different things, entertainers. Great restaurant, great bar, pool, wonderful gym. It's going to be very nice. You'll have to come and stay there sometime.
Oh, I definitely, yeah, I definitely want to check it out for sure. I know besides the book, anything else and the hotel, which is a lot going on, any other projects or
Sure.
things that you have cooking in the next couple?
I just thought of the beer company that my great grandfather Adolphus worked with down in Texas, and it was Lone Star there in Dallas, the Lone Star Beer Company.
Oh, wow. Yes,
Yes.
definitely.
Yep. But anyway, Melissa, we besides the book and and the hotel that we're working on in Miami right now, and looking at growing our hotel company. We also have a brewery, and we're continuing the brewing tradition here in near St. Louis, in an area called St. Charles, Missouri. And we have a farm there, and we're taking a portion of our farm. We've taken a portion of our farm, and we've opened it up to the public. We built a brewery on it, and we're putting a distillery in, and we're brewing beer right now. So we have the Adolphus Pilsner, we have the Gussie Bavarian Lager. We have several beers that we've named after after family members, and it's doing very, very well. It's similar to what I grew up on. The place I grew up on, where people come out, they're able to sit down and enjoy a wonderful beer. Families come. Kids come, they run around. We've got animals around the farm there that the kids can enjoy, and while their parents are, enjoying music and having a beer or whatever they'd like to drink, and good food. So we're doing that, and who knows? Maybe it's scalable. Maybe we'll grow these farm type breweries into a national type of thing, where, like my father did with theme parks around breweries, we keep growing scaling this kind of business around the country. And who knows, maybe we'll be down in Houston to see you down there with our own brewery down there sometime.
Yeah, that would be great because it's more of like a kind of like a boutique. I don't want to say boutique, but like that really nice like hometown feel where you get to have like some beer, enjoy it like you would like for wineries. You go through and you sample, get to meet the family and have that experience. That'd be very, very cool and different.
Well,
So
that's exactly right. That's exactly what we're doing. And it's similar to wineries, but it's craft breweries. It's a craft brewery. And it's so difficult in this day and age, Melissa, to grow the beer business because, there's so much competition. First of all, there's about 10,000 breweries throughout the country now. Back when my family and my ancestors were growing the business, there wasn't that many, especially post prohibition, when a lot of them had shut down. So, but nowadays it's growing so fast, and people are more health conscious than ever, and so they watch what they drink. And of course, now we're also competing with cannabis out there. Cannabis has grown and is making it more difficult because people are catching their buzz from cannabis instead of alcohol these days a lot.
right, that's true because it's gotten to be more where it's not just medical related. It's more certain areas recreational and stuff.
Recreational,
That's
right?
yeah, changes the landscape definitely.
Mm-hmm.
No, I still like a good beer though. I was a beer drinker. I mean, I still am. I like, beer. My grandfather grew up, he was in Wisconsin, and this company, Anheuser-Busch was very big with them as well.
Darn right. Well, I know the Spotted Cow in Wisconsin is really big from the New Glarus brewery in Wisconsin there. So people in Wisconsin love their beer. There's no doubt about it. But the great thing about it is my family is all involved. My wife and all of our kids are very involved in everything we do, from the beer business to the book to the hotel business. Everybody's involved in one way, shape, or form, and we're a very close family. And we prioritize everything, and family always comes first.
Well, it's great. I look forward to reading. It's Family Reins. And like you said, they can find it on Amazon and most bookstores
Yes.
and in the hotel as well when that opens. Looking forward to staying there and checking that out. And I appreciate you being on the show today. Definitely. It's been, I want to hear more of those stories. And I know even about, we couldn't cover it, but about the Tessie, the elephant, and how she kind of protected you from the bullies.
Yes, you got it. Yeah, you read the book. You're going to love that story in there, Melissa. And for the brewery, if you want to see our website, it's bushfamilyfarm.com. That's
Okay.
bushfamilyfarm.com. Check out our website. You'll see what goes on at the brewery. We don't have elephants there yet, but we've got all kinds of animals. One of these days, maybe we'll get another Tessie at one of our breweries.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Texas Roundup. Please feel free to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. Let us know topics and things you'd like us to cover, and we look forward to having you here for the next episode.